Obviously, if you don't know about it, then you can't really receive it. You can't believe for it. You can't pray for it if you don't know about it. So when the knowledge came to us as I was a teenager, I wanted this gift. And man, did I pray. I prayed for the Holy Spirit. And I looked around and, I didn't know much about praying in faith. And so I'd pray and ask God to fill me, and then I'd check and see if I was filled, and I didn't seem to be filled, and I'd keep praying. My faith was in feelings and in sight. I wanted to see or feel the Holy Spirit, and it was just a struggle for me. I just never received that way. Then we got invited to by my aunt and uncle who are Spirit-filled believers at the time, to meet them. My dad and I met them in New Orleans back in 1979 for a Full Gospel Businessmen's World Convention. And I was just a little boy from a small town of 5,000 people, and we went to New Orleans, and I thought the whole world was Spirit-filled. They had these auditoriums filled with people that were listening to speakers. And man, they had every speaker that you could imagine back then. They had Jimmy Swaggart, John Osteen, Kenneth Hagin, Fred Price, Norval Hayes. I mean, the list went on and on of speakers that I'd never heard of before. And every service we went to was like a life-changing experience. It was eye-opening. I didn't realize there were that many Christians in the world, and certainly that many Spirit-filled Christians. And I knew that they all had what I wanted. I wanted to be filled with the Holy Spirit. And pray as I might, I was not able to receive that by myself in my hometown. So here at this convention, we had youth services every night. And during the day, I went to the adult services, but they had youth meetings at night. It was on the top floor of a hotel in downtown New Orleans. And the speaker was Norval Hayes. This is when, if you've heard of Norval, he had just started teaching and preaching. He was a Christian businessman, and he had just started his teaching ministry, and they gave him the youth. So he was practicing on us, and we loved it. He was an excellent youth speaker. Everybody loved him. And so on this particular night, I'll never forget it. It was July 4th, 1979. We had our youth service on the top floor of this hotel in New Orleans, and Norval Hayes had a couple of his friends come, and they were all going to teach on the baptism in the Holy Spirit. Well, this is exactly what I wanted. This is why I came to New Orleans, was to receive this gift. His friends taught before he did, and it was John Osteen, Kenneth Hagin, and Norval Hayes. They all taught in this service on the baptism in the Holy Spirit. What a powerful gift and what a powerful experience. And they began to teach us the things that I'm going to teach in this series. And at the end, they had an invitation for all the young people who wanted to come forward and be filled with the Spirit. Well, it turns out 80 of us went forward to receive the gift of the Holy Spirit. Now, I was already born again, but I'd never experienced this additional experience. And so I went forward with all these other kids, and I'll tell you, nobody laid hands on us that night. We began to pray and lift our hands, and the Holy Spirit fell, much like happened in the book of Acts. As it seemed like the power of God filled that room. Now, we didn't hear a rushing mighty wind, but what you could hear was 80 young people praying in other tongues all at once. And it was heavenly. I'll tell you, it was a life-changing experience with scriptural evidence. In fact, you can trace it back to Acts chapter 2. You can even go further back than that and see that Joel prophesied and promised this gift. Isaiah talked about this gift. Jesus talked about this experience. So it's not some, radical fringe experience that only, weird people have, the way the world's tried to present it. But our forefathers and mothers lived the Spirit-filled life. There was 120 of the early church members in the upper room in Acts chapter 2. It wasn't just the 12 apostles. 120 believers in the upper room were Spirit-filled. And then we see this experience happening again and again in the book of Acts. In Acts 2, Acts 8, Acts 10, and Acts 19. So there is scriptural precedent for this experience. I was, like many people, it was hard for me to believe and receive by myself. But when I got in that room with that atmosphere, in that of corporate faith, when we were all together in one accord and we were all focused on the same thing, it was like you couldn't not receive in that atmosphere. And I got filled with the Holy Spirit and started speaking in other tongues, and I've kept speaking in other tongues ever since. It's one of the greatest experiences of my life, and I'm proud to tell you today, however many years later it is, 40-something, nearly 50-something, I don't know. I'm not going to do the math. It's too far above I can't count that on two hands. But all these years later, decades later, I'm still thrilled to be Spirit-filled. And I appreciate that experience and the gift of speaking in other tongues probably more now than I ever have. A lot of the things that I teach on this program, that I've taught in my ministry, have come to me while I was fellowshipping with God and speaking in other tongues. Revelation comes and gifts of the Spirit flow. It's just the doorway. The baptism in the Holy Spirit is a doorway into the supernatural like nothing else. And all of the gifts of the Spirit begin to operate in believers once they're filled with the Holy Spirit and have received this gift. I want to give you a little bit of history, and this is just something I want to do, and you may enjoy it or not, but to me it's part of our heritage. And if you could think of it this way, if you're Spirit-filled right now, your forefathers, your heritage is in the Spirit-filled movement. So the things that I'm going to talk to you about are part of your history, as much so or more than your flesh and blood kin, relatives. I identify more with people in the Bible in the book of Acts than I do with my family tree. You know, somebody did a study on our family tree and they printed a book, and I was reading it and I started to get proud because we had some Revolutionary War soldiers in our family tree that helped, you know, make America what it is. And then I kept reading and found out we had some really weird, odd, rotten characters in our past, and I thought, you know, that don't mean that much. I'm connected to Jesus. He's my DNA goes right to the throne of God. But our spiritual heritage really is these men and women of faith that walked in the power of God, that were Spirit-filled, and before Spirit-filled was a thing, before it was popular, before it was really well known. We identify with these people and with this experience. So I want to give you a little history. First of all, they call Spirit-filled people Pentecostals. And another reason that I'm doing this is this. It dawned on me a few years ago that I'm preaching to a generation of people who didn't go through the charismatic movement. They didn't hear these great Word of Faith teachers and have these big convention meetings, and they've never sung a charismatic chorus, a word song. They've never sung from an overhead projector, you know what I mean, on a wall. They've never sat in a storefront building on a metal chair and listened to somebody teach the Bible for 2 hours. They don't know about our heritage and the things that some of us have lived through and that are so special to us. There's a generation out there, they don't know what the word Pentecostal means. Or if they think they do, they may be wrong. So I want to define some of these terms, and I think in the process, it'll help us understand our own movement. At least that's my goal here. I appreciate you so much. If you watch or listen to this program and you get something out of it, thank you for being there. You mean the world to me. I think about you, pray for you, prepare messages for you constantly, and it has been a privilege to bring them to you on this program. There's also a group of people within our audience that has decided to become a partner. And if the Lord is dealing with you in that area, please respond. Call our helpline and say, hey, I want to partner with this ministry. I want to help further the good news around the world. If you'd like to, you can go to our website. We have a partner page. You can watch a video. We have different partner levels where you can connect. We'll charge your card every month for you, or you can set it up on our website to automatically happen, or you can send a check, or you can call and text to give. That number is 855-511-5991. We would love to hear from you today.